You studied computer science at Oxford University in the early 2000s. What were you taught there, and is any of it still relevant in today's digital world?
I was really lucky actually that my university degree, and I did maths and computer science, is still really relevant. In fact, it's probably more relevant today than it's sort of ever been. And I'm lucky that I've stayed in that. So I was able to use my degree straight after university, and I've carried on doing so. I don't normally get into the very technical things anymore, so I've moved away from a bit of the hands-on side of things. But even sort of some of the basic things around the data science modelling techniques and things are exactly the same as they were then. And so yes, I've been really lucky to be able to use my degree through my career.
Yeah. Can you remember what all the modules were?
I can remember the ones I hated. I did a lot in stats as well, and so the stats really helped with the with some of the computer science side. Did things like object-oriented programming. We did functional programming in Haskell. For those of you who are old enough to remember Haskell, it's a good introduction to functional programming. The ones I hated most were the pure maths. It got very, very obscure very quickly, and I prefer the more hands-on side and the stats and the computer science.
Yeah. Was there a single most useful thing that Oxford University taught you?
Yes, but probably not from my course. Dealing with ambiguity. So that idea of always being able to not understand a problem, be able to go away and be able to solve it, learning to learn effectively was the most important thing I probably learned.
Yeah. It's interesting because in today's society, there's so much open source learning that you can do.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's a bit of a culture of university dropouts and kind of glorifying that in many ways, or at least in Silicon Valley we see that. But ultimately, those universities are the ones where you learn the principles of, I suppose, software engineering, data science. So do you think it's still relevant in today's society to actually go into a university degree, or can you just learn everything yourself online?
Oh, really good question. I think a lot of it is about getting the space and the dedication, the actual training to be able to learn. So the fact that were lectures and seminars and tutorials gave you that focus, and everybody around you is doing it as well. And so actually it's really hard to do it by yourself and have that that direction. I think you can certainly learn all the factual knowledge outside of university, but it is actually that skill of applying the knowledge and learning those things which you don't know already, which I think is tricky.
Yeah. Before we go into some of the technicals, the data, AI, technology projects you're working on, have been working on, what subjects do you think should be taught on every modern computer science or data science degree program?
Great question.
What are the foundations that every budding software engineer or data scientist, AI professional needs to know?
At the heart of it, it is using a lot of numeracy skills and a lot of logic. Now, whether that probably ought to be taught pre-university, and I would make it sort of compulsory until probably A levels. But that idea of everything is now revolving around that, the understanding of how Internet of Things interoperates is again really important. If you can't understand how it's different systems are working, then it's very difficult to be able to make changes to those.
Yeah. What about more modern principles of vibe coding? Do you think universities should be teaching vibe coding?
So I've had quite long discussions with teacher friends about how AI should be used in education and how students should learn. From a business perspective, we expect you to use AI to improve your efficiency. Therefore, if the point of education is to get you ready for the business world, then yes, they should teach you not to say vibe coding, but the idea of being able to use AI in order to improve your efficiency, to be able to code faster and be able to to solve those problems more efficiently. Now, if the point of education is not to get you ready for business world, but actually give you a thirst for learning and enjoying and progressing your own the advancement of human knowledge, then maybe you don't, because effectively AI is just regurgitating what you are doing. So fundamentally, it comes down to principle of what education is for as to whether it should be taught. From my perspective, as a business leader, I would expect all my people coming into interview with me or work with me to use AI. So I would like it to be taught.
Yeah. So even junior software engineers then, are you expecting them to be glued up on generative AI?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and we actually, one of our interview questions is, how do you use AI to improve the efficiency of your work at the moment? And everybody says, GitHub Copilot and various others. We're looking for them. The next stage is going, somebody who's gone, I've actually built my own agent to solve this sort of a problem as well. So it is going beyond just getting ChatGPT to spool out a load of code.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And are there any other technologies that you'd recommend or you're working on at the minute in that respect?
So dLocal is doing a lot of work on how to automate across the organisation, as a huge number of companies are. It's approaching it as it approaches everything from a very technical standpoint, and we have teams of people going to every area of the business to automate processes using AI where possible. We have some centralised AI innovation labs which are looking to use different tools, bringing pieces in. We use a technology called Glean, which is very good for building your internal knowledge base. So it has lots of connections out to your HR systems, your engagement surveys, your Slack, everything, all the documents which you have access to, and you can ask that questions, and you can write your own little agents for it. So a couple of examples there is, I've just done my quarterly reviews for my team. I got the first version of that from Glean. I said, wrote a decent prompt saying, go look at the feedback over the last quarter. What sort of things have they been involved in? It went and pulled all that information together and gave me a first cut of their review based on the knowledge it had. I also have a little agent running that every day goes and looks at all the competitor websites and goes and looks for any new product releases and reports those to me in a little Slack message every day. So it's little things like that which is just turbocharging your day, meaning you keep on top of things and you don't have to spend hours going and searching for it or not doing it at all.
Yeah. Did you build that agent yourself?
Actually, that was one somebody shared with me, but I wrote a different one. Wasn't as good though, so I used theirs.
Yeah. Before we get into the tech, because I'd really like to learn more about what you've been creating over the last couple of years, can you share an overview of your career so far? Set the scene.
Definitely. So I've always been in technology, and I started out as a computer programmer 20 plus years ago, and I was writing in first VB6, again for those who remember that, and then in .NET. And after sort of 5 years of being a coder, I realised that actually other people were starting to be better at it than I was. And I thought I was always going to be the technical person and be able to solve the deeply technical problems. But I realised I started enjoying seeing other people succeed. So my next role was in a loyalty company looking at big retailers like Sainsbury's and CVS in the US and Coles in Australia, as a software engineering manager sort of role, but I also looking at much more the analytics side of the business. How can you really drive value from that data? And I was really lucky to land in an organisation which had a huge team of analysts, and we're looking to take all of that retailer's data and sell it to the suppliers of Sainsbury's. So we had the big, the Nestle's, the Reckitt Benckises, who were effectively using all our data, and we were selling that data. We were one of the first companies that were able to derive direct revenue from the data they're holding. And getting organisations to that point is actually really tricky. Most organisations look at doing better decisions through use of data, working on automated processes to improve their decision making. Very few get to that gold of how do you drive direct revenue from the data you're holding. You have to have a real USP around the data. We'll come on to that in a bit. My career carried on, getting more and more senior in the leadership roles. I worked for The Guardian News and Media, looking across both the data solutions side, data privacy, as well as the data science and analytics piece there. Took them through GDPR in 2018, which was lots of fun for a 200-year-old organisation, as you can imagine. Worked for a Virgin startup company, which was again really fun. I was employee number I think 8 there, and it was over 80 by the time I left. So sort of that high growth organisation. Again, looking to how you can get value from that data. We looked at very much around consumer recommendations, and then I moved into energy space. I worked for the tech wing of OVO Energy, and looked at a much larger tech organisation, how that should mature, looked at data mesh architecture in there. Did lots of work with electric vehicles as well. A really interesting use case around how you can dynamically charge and discharge electric vehicles in order to balance the grid. We ran the world's largest trial of about 1,000 electric vehicles connected to the grid, where we could dynamically turn them onto charge. That's fairly common, but also onto discharge. So when the grid was low in a particular substation, you could say, okay, let's use this distributed battery we have of all these electric vehicles plugged in and look to discharge them. My team was in charge of doing that two-sided optimization problem, which is the cars always need to have enough charging, and depending on when they're next looking to use them, and we need to be able to balance the grid at the same time. So that's the optimization problem in there. Most recently, before dLocal, I was working in HealthTech and looking at a platform for temporary healthcare staffing. And this is a two-sided optimization problem. Again, on one side, you've got all the care homes, education facilities, NHS that are needing temporary staff, and on the other, you've got a bank of, we had about 13,000 staff. And again, it's optimizing who can go to which shift at which time, and making that much more into a marketplace. Imagine Uber, but for temporary staffing, and you've pretty much got that. There I was the Chief Data and AI Officer, and doing lots of work around sort of that optimization piece, but also around the future of health tech, especially as GenAI was taking off, and everybody was going, well, what's happening around this? And we started looking at some really interesting things around in health tech, things like robots helping move patients around care homes. So what would happen if, rather than us having to send 2 nurses to a care home, we send 1 nurse and a robot? And that's not very far away. Already in Japan, they're using robots to help move patients around. It's adding autonomy for the patients in terms of they can just call the robot to be able to move from their bedroom to the lounge, rather than actually having to wait for somebody to be able to do that. So whilst we probably never would be on the robotics side, we had lots of that real-world data and real-life settings where you could use those situations. So lots of interesting things in the health tech world. NHS virtual wards and smart wearables is another huge area which we were looking at. Again, imagine every patient in the care home was wearing a smartwatch or smart ring. You don't have to have staff to go round them to take the blood pressure. You can see it across the board at any point in time. Then most recently, and very recently, I've only been 6 weeks in the new job. I'm working for a company called dLocal, which does payments in emerging markets. So probably never heard of dLocal, because fundamentally it's based in South America, Africa, Southeast Asia. But if you know Stripe, you'll have seen it sometimes on your credit card statement, where you go and do a digital journey and you can pay using the payment rails of Stripe. dLocal is exactly the same, but for emerging markets. Emerging markets is much more complex. There's lots of different ways of paying. It's not dominated as much by your debit and credit cards. So using those alternative payment methods and integrating with those is the dLocal's forte.
Awesome. It's broad set of industries.
Yes,
it's probably the broadest
I love working across different industries. I love the challenge of learning about different industries and how they operate. But you can always cross-fertilise the ideas, which is really interesting. So something you've seen happen in one place, you go, oh, why don't we do that here, or a version of that here? It's So very good to use. And interesting, all the data problems tend to be exactly the same. It's all about robust pipelines. It's all about the trustworthiness of the data and the results and the scalability.
Yeah. So why did you join a global fintech? What caught your eye?
It's the time of the organisation that I really like. So dLocal has grown hugely over the last, it was founded in 2016 and went public in 2021, 22, but is really still a startup going to scale up. It's about 1,000 people. It's valued at, I think, $22 billion. It's public on the NASDAQ, but it's really only just getting into scale at the moment. And that idea of going, okay, we've got all of these processes, this sort of bit of chaos underneath the hood. You go, well, how do we make it so that rather than having to grow the organisation in terms of number of people, you make every single person that much more valuable, so you're scaling the organisation in terms of effectiveness and efficiency, which of course data and AI plays a huge role in.
Yeah, and obviously your background's so broad. So you looked after data, analytics, insights, but also the tech, software engineering. And that combination is really rare, especially over industries as well. So what kind of team did you inherit at dLocal, and how are you shaping that over the next year or two?
My team's just under 50 people, and it's covering data engineering, data ops, BI engineering, a little bit of BI analytics, but not very much. That's an area we need to sort of think about how we work on. And then I also brought another team in from a different part of the organisation, looking at data science and ML ops as well. So having those two parts of the organisation starting to talk to each other is really interesting. They just have not spoken to each other. They developed really similar solutions to solve really similar problems, and they just didn't know each other existed effectively in the organisation. So for me, it's about building that synergy across the data pipeline, which is really valuable. At the moment, they have a lot of data, and they're not using it anywhere near as effectively as they could, so they're not driving that value from it, and that's really got to be the core of why data analytics exists. I think there's some foundational work we need to do in order to be able to do that scale, and we will almost certainly move to a data mesh architecture in the next 6 months. That's a big cultural change as well as a technical change. The technical stuff is almost quite easy to manage. You go, okay, this is exactly what needs to happen. To change to the culture of a data mesh where the producing teams are owning the data that's sitting in your data pipelines takes a mindset shift. There's lots of education for engineering teams, product teams, but also we're looking to bring in data from the people team, the finance team, especially in dLocal, which relies so heavily on its finance and treasury teams. The compliance team, which of course from a regulatory perspective is really strong within dLocal as well. All of those are going to become owners of data in the data mesh because all of them need data to be able to use it. So we've got that foundational piece, which will help with that scale. It'll also start helping with some of that trustworthiness of data, because we go, well, here is the one source of the truth. Here is the curated version with SLAs and the when there is issues, it gets raised to the right person in a really quick, effective manner. So there's lots of work to do on the data foundations, and then it's building off that, which is how do the business make better decisions. Obviously, we're using lots of data science already within the fraud space. There's lots of other opportunity there. We're using lots of our in-house data, but there's the opportunity to bring other data sources in to make those pieces better. Anomaly detection, smart routing, treasury and foreign exchange predictions. There is a huge amount of opportunity there, and being able to deliver that value, and I'm going to say the word value 100 times in this podcast, because fundamentally that's what data professionals always need to be looking for. Data is too easily seen as a cost center, and it needs to be seen as a value driver, and that's where it should be seen. It should be driving that revenue. It's really hard to measure that, certainly when it's about the business making better decisions. How do you measure a better decision? And there's proxies which you can use, but the tying it into that business value and data science and making better decisions there is a really good way of being able to measure that from an automated perspective.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I know you touched on it earlier. You mentioned you were building or had an AI innovation team, which is something I've seen popping up quite a lot this year.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously varies from company to company. I've spoken to a few data leaders, tech leaders about it recently. Some of them kind of think it's all hype and there's not much relevance, but others are doubling down, almost going gung-ho on these labs, these separate innovation tech teams who are just looking at other technologies, other processes, and trying to embed them into either an existing data or tech office, or just build products, capabilities themselves. So what's your approach to the AI innovation team? What are your thoughts around it?
The approach dLocal has taken is a hub and spoke model. So we have the innovation team that sits at the middle and going, okay, these are opportunities which are currently available. There's this tech which could solve that problem, or this tech that could solve that problem. Okay, we'll give them a little try and see how that works. And then the spokes are these 2-3 people who go into different teams who are then implementing the approved pieces of software from that innovation hub out into the business. So I mentioned Glean. We also use Zapier to do a lot of that process automation, and it is a combination of process automation and AI. There is lots of things where you go, you just don't need AI for that. That's just a process automation, but that's okay, because that making the company more efficient is the end goal. And if you can remove half a dozen processes, that's brilliant. Yes, it is really thinking about that efficiency, and we look to remove and measure manual hours taken out of the business. So in the last few months, we've taken out thousands of manual hours across the business, and repurposed those for other things. Interestingly, it hasn't necessarily led to direct headcount reduction. We've actually repurposed those individuals to do different things, and we've doing more revenue driving activities because we freed up people away from the boring everyday pieces through that process automation.
So how do you identify where those gaps are, or where the opportunities are to actually improve efficiency?
We assume they're everywhere in the business. We send our little squads of people in who are there's product managers in there and business analysts who will look at the processes currently happening and go, okay, which of these bits do you actually need, and then how do we reimagine that process using technology? And it won't look like it did previously, but you go, well, what's the end goal? Okay, it's compliance here. Okay, well, let's get the data from over there. You were previously getting there, but actually it's easier to get from there. We can run those bits manually, but you need to you run that bit automatically, but you need to put your human in the loop here to be able to verify those results. How do we speed up that process? Okay, let's put in a workflow which is using Slack to manage the different communications as well.
Yeah, it's very broad. And so, longer term, I don't know whether there's a perfect answer to this, but in 1 or 2 years' time, assuming you're still at dLocal and building this team, what will the perfect data and technology AI setup looks like from like a structure point of view?
Mm-hmm. So
what are the key divisions within your team?
The knowledge management is a huge area. So we start thinking about, we always thought about the data warehouse and data lake and data lighthouse and whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of quantitative data that's there. And that's great, and that's what traditionally data teams have managed. They now need to start thinking about knowledge, and that includes not just the other systems in the organization, not just your engagement or performance review systems or your people team systems or your finance systems, but also every single document which somebody is writing, every comment they're having, every meeting they're in, you want to basically get as much of their knowledge of the company from their brain into a knowledge center, but thinking about that in the round of all your other data. So starting to think much more from a knowledge perspective than just quantitative data is a really important step. Again, no point in having it unless you can use it to drive that value. So making sure that information and your knowledge is driving those actionable insights. So for say our operational teams being able to spot potential issues before they're happening, or go, well, here are improvements which can be made to improve conversion rates. And I read recently about an article called Death of the Dashboard. Now, that was the headline, but that idea that actually dashboards perhaps aren't the best way of communicating insights from an analyst to an end user, but actually spoon feeding more. So being able to say, well, these are the top 5 things that I can see from your what would be your dashboard. And these are the actions you should take. I can see your coverage rate is dropping over there. Well, what about trying to use this other payment method, which is also available in your region? That is something which we could easily use AI to generate the insight. So the idea of moving away from sort of BI, yes, you need it to measure the health of a business, but from an insight perspective and drive those actions, you really want to have almost a list of things going, okay, these are the top 10 things we've noticed. This is what you need to do about each of those, and ideally links, and make it as smooth and frictionless as possible for the action to be taken.
Yeah. And these days, what kind of tech projects are you working on? Or what's the focus for you? 6 weeks in. 6
weeks in. So because dLocal is coming out of the startup phase into scale up, there are basically 5 different ways of doing everything, because everyone's gone, oh, what's the quickest way of getting this out the door in order to get the market share? And so a lot of it is about going, which OLAP database makes most sense for us to use. We've got 3 different versions at the moment. Okay, let's look across and work out which one makes most sense for us. We're currently using Redshift and probably not getting the value we need to get out of Redshift. It doesn't support a lot of the AI use cases particularly well. Something like Databricks, and they've got a tool called Gemini, something like that. Genie, Project Genie, in the Databricks stack, which is then really good at allowing natural language questions to be written against the database, against a nice little semantic layer which you can build in there. That's again working towards that idea of it not just being dashboards or having to write SQL in order to get hold of that insight, it being a much easier, lower bar to entry to be able to get hold of that. We're also looking at sort of Google and BigQuery stack, and that has got Gemini built into BigQuery. It's not quite as user-friendly yet from an external perspective for writing those natural language questions, but given the pace that Google move, it won't be long before that's available as well.
Yeah. Have you used Notebook LM?
Yes, that's rolled out across our organisation. Lots of people use it. We're thinking about how we use that for our document. Can we auto-document all of our processes by taking our GitHub code and our Jira projects and writing all our documents in an LLM and then making that available to glean so that effectively anybody can ask any question about the process? Yes, we are doing that. We're doing a lot of things around that sort of automation.
Yeah. Who researches the tech then? Is it you as the leader of the teams?
I don't go into the details. I rely on my much more capable colleagues to manage that. I tend to say, look, we've got 3 of these. What's the best way forward? And the data engineering lead or the BI lead or the data ops lead will go, okay, well, yeah, we've got 2 or 3 different options here. This is how it might play out in the whole scheme of things, and trying to think about the combined architecture as well. Part of scalability is not solving just your problem, but solving the bigger pictures, not just across data analytics, but across the whole tech stack.
Yeah. But what is the bigger picture for you? And what are you actually trying to solve?
So it is making all of that treasure trove of data available to both the business and the merchants to be able to surface that insight. So that data mesh architecture will enable far greater scale. There won't be blockers on the data engineering team and the BI team anymore, and we'll be able to surface things much more quickly and agile.
Yeah. And what's this data mesh architecture? I've heard it a lot, and I know the consultancies use it all the time. Yeah.
So
how would you describe that?
Data mesh changes the paradigm around how data is managed. You don't. The data engineering team, as it used to own both the pipes and the data in the pipes. The data mesh architecture changes that by thinking of data as a product and is owned by the upstream producing team. So you might have an operational transactional process that's happening. That will be producing a data product, which needs to have a data contract in place. It needs to have SLAs and data quality assertions built into it. It needs to have any definition of transformations built into it, and all of those you do as code. So you use a YAML definition, or there's various others available to be able to define all of that. And the upstream team owning that data set guarantee its trustworthiness and availability for all the downstream consumers. Anybody in the business, assuming they have authentication access to it, will then be able to use that data, and they can make requests to the upstream team saying, oh, can I have this extra field in there? Can I do this? But it isn't the data engineering team that makes the changes to that data product. It is the upstream team, and because it's all defined in a YAML file, and you provide tooling over the top of it to make it very easy to make changes to it, the idea is that is the product that the upstream team care about as much as they care about their app or their website. They care about that data as a product and understand the value that is driving for downstream teams.
Yeah. I know when I speak to leaders, they say the majority of the reasons why AI projects fail or data projects generally fail is because there's poor data quality, poor data governance frameworks in place. Do you agree with that? Is that part and parcel of why most of them don't get out of?
Same with AI and most data projects. Yep, is you need to understand how the level of data quality you need in order to get your expected results. So when you are considering that project and the value it's going to drive, you need to be able to say, well, the key data here is X, Y, and Z. X needs to be at 80% accuracy, that's fine for that. B, that needs to be 99% accuracy, otherwise this is going to fail. And sometimes you need to iterate around that process, going, okay, well, can we cope with actually having that 95%, because that'll make it more likely to succeed. So the right amount of data quality, absolutely. Being able to push that data quality leftwards into the producing teams and making it very, very easy to have those assertions in place and constantly running. So it shouldn't be downstream consumers that pick up any of the data errors. It should be the producing team, in the same way as when your website goes down, you hope you pick that up before any of your consumers pick that up. It should be exactly the same with the data as a product thinking. The other two aspects of data mesh is you have to have a federated governance. Everybody who's playing in that data mesh has to abide by the same rules. You've got to have the same interoperability layers. You've got to have the same ways of being able to access it. You've got to have the same security on that. So at the moment we're designing what we want that to look like. So what our interoperability layers are going to be working like. How do we support data products with different speeds? We work at sub-second, millisecond speeds for our fraud detection. Our operations team work at sub-minutes, and then our slow data is hourly. I mean, that's roughly what we're working at in terms of speeds. You also can't expect your upstream teams just to take on those data products. They'll go, why should I do that? That's a whole bunch of extra work for me to do. And so you have to. There's education around the value that it's going to drive. Why is it happening? But you also need to make it frictionless. So having a data tooling team, like a developer experience, but a data product experience team who manage things like the data catalog, make it really easy to generate test data. And the sort of KPIs that would be measured on is how long does it take to get a data product onto the data mesh, and how easy is it to manage that? What's your mean time to resolution for your data products?
Yeah. For those on small budgets though, who don't have the luxury of a massive team or able to even grow it, how do you do data governance or data quality for cheap?
I think it's still think about it in the same way. So it is still thinking about who needs to own that data. And for me, it's got to be the producers, because otherwise you've got this thing where people just throw data over the fence and it just lands in a muddy puddle. And so for me, you've got to still think about it in that same way. Data quality doesn't have to cost a lot. The Great Expectations is it open source, easy to work with. Being able to put that in place is relatively quick and easy. There's open source data catalogs available as well. I mean, you don't have to spend the earth in order to get some basic data governance pieces. I would encourage everybody to do it with a technical solution. As soon as you start going, we'll just write a list of in a spreadsheet of all the data sources we've got and add data processes, at that point you know that something's going to go wrong, because that just will not stay up to date. If you wanted to have any agility at all, you're going to have to be changing that on a daily basis, and nobody's ever going to do that. It just becomes an albatross around your neck.
Yeah. You also mentioned data engineers earlier. And I've seen a bit of a shift from data engineering to AI engineering. Again, I don't really know what it means. In some organizations, they describe a principal software engineer who's great at Python. They're doing some generative AI work. Makes sense. But is an AI engineer just marketing language, or is this deeper skill revolution happening?
So it can mean a few things. AI engineer can mean a data scientist, but normally I would still see data scientists having much more depth in terms of other non-LLM solutions, and using LLMs as a potential tool in their toolbox. The way that I've seen AI engineers used and the way that dLocal use them is they are those people who are doing the automation and managing, doing that integration with the tooling which is available, in our case using Glean or Zapier. It is potentially writing better prompts, writing those agents, thinking about how that data integration might work, but predominantly they shouldn't be doing the moving of the data. That should be the data engineer's job. They should be doing the how do we apply the GPT solution to automate this. If anything, I'd say an AI engineer is an evolution of a process automation engineer, really. And I suspect a lot of the time at the moment they're doing exactly that, because not all the problems need to be solved using AI.
Yeah. People can just solve them themselves.
Yep.
Yeah. So with dLocal, or maybe at New Cross, because I know you were there for a while, what were the most exciting AI initiatives that you were working on?
New Cross was very much focused around the cost reduction piece, which everybody in the world is, but especially in the UK, given the economic climate at the moment. The areas we had most success, taking SaaS tools into things like legal, into things like bid management, worked really well, effectively just speeding up that process. Again, you need a good knowledge base to work with for that. We also did chat bots on the websites, and the first version we did, which is just sort of vanilla one, which is the same as everybody's got, was like, it's not doing very much. We had far more success when we started connecting it to live data and live analytical data we use as well. So we actually fed it through our Databricks stack. We did some aggregations on it. We provided some context for that information. And then when somebody asked a question, we were able to say, okay, up to the minute, what's currently happening? How many shifts have you currently been booked into? Why have I not been paid yet? And we got the bot to the virtual agent to answer about 40% of all the queries which were coming in, and we tackled that based on which ones were the big questions. And fortunately, most of our questions were quite similar, and we could go, okay, if we bring this data to the fore, bring that out, then we can use it. So we used Intercom to manage all of the agents, both virtual and live agents, because the difficult thing is not getting the virtual agent to work, it's doing the handoff to the live agent. At what point do you do that? So Intercom specialises in doing that. So we're like, well, we're not going to touch that, but we will use the virtual agent, but embed it with extra real-time information.
Yeah. I keep hearing about agents a lot. You mentioned it earlier. I understand what it is from like a principle and what's happening. But for those who aren't technical, digitally savvy, maybe, can you summarize and describe what is an AI agent? What does it all mean?
Yeah, sure. So an AI agent is a bit of code effectively that will go and perform a little task for you, like an Excel macro if you wanted to, but in a much more grandiose way. So the idea of agents is to effectively solve individual, potentially small problems, but then as part of a larger agentic framework and then start working together. So imagine you were having to write a blog post on I don't know, traveling in Europe in the summer or something. I don't know. You might write that specific request to your blog writing agent. Now, your blog writing agent is actually just a coordinator of other agents. It's going to go, okay, well, in order to create my blog, I need to have some text. Okay, I'm going to go away to my text agent. You go generate some text on that. I need some pictures. Okay, picture agent, you go get me some pictures which might be relevant. Need a video to go with it. Okay, video agent. Okay, my text agent's now come back. Right, you can send that to my editor agent. Now, editor, what do you think of that text text agent's written? Oh, I think it needs to be a bit short. It's a bit verbose. Go rewrite it with that information. And effectively, you start pulling together lots of these different tasks into a more complex architecture. So at the moment, LLMs or any other machine learning is very good at solving individual problems, but there isn't something which can solve every problem. So this agentic framework effectively gets round that by having custom pieces to solve different problems. I'm very much looking forward to the agentic framework, which allows me to go, oh, could you find me some friends for my daughter to have play dates with in the half term? And effectively you might have your WhatsApp agent will go, okay, who are the friends are? Okay, I'm going to go message these 5 people about, they seem to have children the same age. I'll get my calendar agent to sort of help me book some of those. I'll go and have an agent which goes and looks at possible play dates in terms of other venues. All this is happening at half term. Right, I'm going to put that in for Tuesday morning and put that in for Thursday afternoon. And you can imagine just taking that whole weight off, going backwards and forwards, trying to find a date when everybody can do. And so that sort of agentic framework will be composed of multiple modules to solve that overall piece. Yeah.
Are you building that yourself then? Or are there technologies out there that you're...
So we certainly internally we lean on Glean to do that agentic framework for us. It doesn't make a lot of sense to build an agentic framework yourself unless it's... the actual framework probably never just build yourself, just always buy it in. It's never worth building. But get one where when you need to do custom pieces, you go, well, actually, we know better. Our data science team can produce a machine learnt solution here, which we better than anybody else can do because we've got the industry knowledge, because we've got the specialized data, but then you make that as available as an agent to your agentic framework so that anybody in the organization can effectively use it.
Yeah. Have you come across FlockX?
No, I haven't.
By Fetch AI?
Don't know that one.
No. I'll put it in the description for this, but it's probably worth a look at. I know they're building AI agents for individual customer use, consumer use, but also for businesses. And they have some pretty cool proof of concepts at the minute. I don't know whether it's in production. I imagine it is, but it's definitely an interesting business to look at.
Yep.
FlockX.
And I think and that sort of world is not very far away. I mean, it's a 2025 buzz term is the agentic architecture.
The tech's already there.
Yes, and the individual agents getting better. There's still some making those generally available is the tricky piece. But it is getting there, and obviously because of using natural language effectively as interoperability between different agents, and things like the MCP frameworks, which allow you to communicate much more effectively between agents. It becomes it's on its way.
Yeah. And now you're working in FinTech. There's obviously a lot of regulation on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine. I know. Well, there's all sorts everywhere in many industries, but particularly in finance, the government's come down harsh on innovation, on tech. So how do you balance innovation and regulation?
I think that human in the loop at the moment is just invaluable, and having multiple curation steps on anything automated. So having AI checking its own work, or using a different AI to check its own work is really important. So you can start realizing where you might have risk across the organisation. We started using AI to be able to scan changes in regulations. So we're going, we're operating across 50 odd different territories. Those regulations are changing on a daily basis. So how do we make sure we're always keeping up with what's the latest that's coming? Well, actually, using agents to find the gaps is very helpful.
Yeah. So how do you approach the next few months, possibly when it comes to innovation, AI agents? Like, how are you researching and staying on top of innovations?
So across sort of fintech and finance, every industry is going to have a huge change in the next 1 to 5 years. We're probably only right at the beginning of the AI revolution piece, and we're going through the hype cycle at the moment. Lots of people saying crazy things about AI, and we're not necessarily there yet, but every company in every industry needs to think about how AI is going to change their industry, because if you don't, then effectively somebody else will, and your business will fail because you won't be able to keep up. So one of the areas in finance which we're looking at the moment is agent-to-agent payments. So it's reckoned by 2030 that around about 25% of all digital payments will be made agent to agent. So this idea of you asking your agent or your agentic architecture, say, could you, when there's some tickets available for the next Taylor Swift concert in the UK, could you get me to quite close to the stage for less than £1,000? So this agent will be watching for you when those tickets come on sale. We'll go, okay, I'm going to try and getting you some of those tickets, and but the payment of that, you've given your agent mandate to at some point in the future make a payment on your behalf based on a relatively woolly description of what you're after. How does that framework work so that you give an agent mandate? Because at the moment, the only way you can make payments is by having a human being able to give authorization to that at that point in time. How can the merchant go, well, I've had an agent ask me this, but actually I need a bit more information. So how can you sort of have the backward flow where the merchant agent can say, well, we've got these 2 tickets, but they're not very close to the stage. Is this close enough for you? And then being able to go back and go, the message to you can pop up saying, well, I've got these ones. They're a bit on one side. Is that okay? And you're going yes or no. So, and then if an agent makes a payment and you dispute it, you go, I didn't ask my agent to do that. How is that resolved across that transaction? And how is it clear who has the mandate, and how do you stop the fraud in that journey? Yeah,
I know ChatGPT was asking me for my bank details earlier.
Yes, it's just started doing the shopping. I think it's linked into a few specific sales processes. So yes, that's not doing, as far as I'm aware, that's not doing it in the future yet. It is allowing you to do it at the point in time. So the mandate is slightly different because it still presents the product to you. You still have to go, yes, I want that, rather than it being an agent in the future. But that is something which will be, well, there will already be prototypes of how that operates. So the way to set out that framework is working with some of the big players to work out what that transaction framework needs to look like, and then companies like dLocal and Stripe and other payment gateways being able to go, yeah, we're going to be able to support that as a payment method.
Yeah. Are there any other projects that you and dLocal are focusing on next year?
Stablecoin is the other big one. So cryptocurrencies in general have always had too much risk and haven't been regulated well enough to be to make it compliant. Now there are ways of being able to use cryptocurrency with dLocal, but stablecoin, where effectively a government is backing and enabling the currency to be tracked against a standard base rate, makes it much more reliable. Now, hopefully, we get the benefits of cryptocurrencies, i.e., it being ubiquitous across the globe, and but with the stability of some regulation in there and some compliance, which means that at the moment the big cost for merchants is expatriation and foreign exchange costs when they're moving money between different regions. If stablecoin starts becoming a big enough thing, then that should drive down those percentages, which will start impacting some of the companies like Visa and MasterCard, who obviously, and Amex, who charge a large percentage on those transactions. Go, well, if there's a cheaper way of being able to do that, then it will massively upset the FinTech economy.
Do you know anything about AI agents in buying crypto?
No, I don't. I haven't.
I
mean, yes, you could do. Whether you want to risk it is a different question. So I guess you'd still have to be sort of better than people at being able to do that with the same information. But you might be able to do it quicker. So the speed, given the volatility in cryptocurrency, there's a chance that you could do it. I did read an article around an AI agent being the first crypto millionaire from buying and selling crypto. Yeah,
that's an interesting one. We'll have to look into that. Yeah, but it just poses a really interesting concept that this world of agentic AI agents is becoming mainstream, and it's happened so quickly.
Yes.
So it's almost like, what is the next piece of technology or theme that's going to emerge next year?
Yes, and if we sort of take a little step back and think about how fast AI is, the AI revolution is happening. The Industrial Revolution, well, probably more than one Industrial Revolution if you think about it, but it happened over 30, 50 years, and sort of the change in that. And so effectively, people could get used to it and understand the changes and that were happening. It brought huge socio-economic changes. If you think, then jump forward to sort of computing and sort of computers coming to the office in the late 80s or something, that probably took maybe 10, 15 years. The mobile piece maybe sort of maybe a bit quicker, but sort of the revolution happened in about the same sort of 10 years. The revolution is getting faster and faster. The AI revolution is going to be happening within probably 5 years. We're going to be thinking very, very differently, and humans in general are brilliant at change. It's the adaptability of humans is what's allowed them to survive for thousands of years. They're not very good at changing quickly. And so the difficulty with the AI revolution will be that speed of change. People don't like that the quick change, but people who are even in their 60s today won't have retired by the time that the AI revolution is happened. People can't just go, I'm going to live it out. I'm going to retire before it makes an impact on me. It's not going to happen. You're going to have to learn and adapt in order to be able to to the AI world. And so for everybody thinking about what they want to do in that new world is really important. It doesn't necessarily have to be learning all the intricacies about agents. It's about how can you make your job more effective and efficient. How do you change the lens on your job? Your job may well end up being managing agents. And one of the questions I've been toying with is, do you include agents on your org chart? You go, well, actually, I've got 5 agents here. They're all running, and they've got a manager there. Do you include them on your org chart? Is that how you start thinking about teams now?
That's clever. Well, they're effectively part-time workers.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Albeit on a full-time basis.
Yeah.
And autonomous.
Going all yeah. Yes, and doing the things they do very quickly, albeit not necessarily as well as other people at the moment.
Yeah. Not yet.
Not yet.
So what other use cases could you deploy an agent for?
The big one we're using at the moment is product and engineering. So we are, and there's lots of solutions out there doing similar things, but one thing that GenAI is very, very good at is coding, writing code and translating code between different languages. So if you wanted to write, if you had something that was written in COBOL and you wanted to write it in Java, it would just change it for you. And yes, there'd be some errors and you'd have to think about how you worked on it. But the idea of a software engineer is going to be changing hugely. So a software engineer won't be 75% writing code, 25% thinking about the the problem and the solution. It'll be 75% thinking about the solution and the actual software that it needs to build, and 25% managing the code which is coming from the AI agents. So we've been working on a tool called dCoder, which is will literally look at a Jira ticket and go, is there enough information in that Jira ticket to be able to think about the solution for this? If not, I'm going to pass that over to my agent, which is going to go and expand on that Jira ticket. It's going to go and look at all the other Confluence documentation, all the stuff that's in our documents and all the conversations that have happened in Slack about it, and write that ticket in more detail. And that's what that agent's job is. The next part of it will then, the actual coder part will then go, okay, I now think I've got enough information in that ticket to have a stab at writing the code. It'll take our code base from GitHub and it'll create a PR looking to solve that problem. And it will then run that through all the regression tests, run through the first part of the CI/CD pipeline, and go report that to an actual human software engineer to go, here's my first version, it's passing the tests, I think it's passing things, you comment on what needs to be changed, does it meet the requirements, what else needs to happen. Works right, the software engineer writes some comments, goes back, has another go, software engineer might go, okay, you need to change that bit, or actually there's a library over there that can do that bit better than you've done that. So, and the important thing is it starts learning from those corrections which the engineer is making. So it's early doors at the moment. We're just starting to roll out our version of sort of dCoder, and the aim is that we will be driving up. We have a roughly 40% success rate at the moment. So 40% of those PRs which have been written by dCoder are accepted into production, sometimes with some alteration, but the basic PR that it's written has been adopted into production. So driving that number up over time is incredibly valuable. It doesn't get rid of the software engineer, it changes what the software engineer needs to do. We are now looking to extend that process a bit further backwards. So at the moment it's having to use a Jira ticket to do that, and yes, it can expand on the Jira ticket, but it still needs quite a lot of help on that. We're extending it back into sort of what we're currently calling pre-coder, but it's the idea of actually, can you, from just an idea, so like a product manager comes up with an epic idea, can you split that epic into enough information to be able to go, okay, this is what it could look like, okay, I need to get some information from compliance over here, okay, I'm going to send off some requests to compliance to get the answers for that, I'm going to send these questions over to the architecture team to do that, and then start building out from a single line what the whole epic, breaking that then down into tickets which the decoder could then pick up and solve. So sort of pulling it backwards from that direction, with the whole idea of just improving that delivery cycle and that speed to market.
That's pretty impressive. And so you basically just touched on it, but you're deploying extra AI agents to do extra work that I suppose your software engineers wouldn't want to do or could do?
They could do, but it just takes them a long time, and their value is not in writing code so much anymore. Their value is architecting the solutions, it's architecting the software. Yes, we're obviously still needing them to write lots of and correct lots of code at the moment, but that will be changing. And it does bring up an interesting problem of if all of our coders are now agents, how does anybody learn to code, and then how do you train the people who need to be the humans in the loop to check the code that's coming back? And I don't know the answer to that, but we've been through all the other revolutions as a human race, and we adapt to them, and we will adapt to that. We will find ways through it.
We'll work it out. Do you believe that AI will create more jobs than it will replace?
Yes, probably it will. Yes, I think so. There will be whole industries which we haven't even thought of yet, which will spring into being in the same way as the internet brought lots of industries which just didn't exist before. Mobile gaming, mobile marketing, that only came about when mobiles became a thing. So there will be huge changes in terms of how it's the job, the types of job. But I suspect overall it will be there will be more jobs available. But the skill sets needed for them and the what jobs AI and robotics can do versus I think training to think about those jobs which can't be done by AI gives you sort of more longevity in terms of your the skills you're learning. So like in restaurants, they're already using robots to take food to the tables, it means that the waiting staff get to spend more time on the floor helping the customers rather than having to ferry it from the kitchen. That's already available, and you go, well, that seems fairly normal. They look a bit like Daleks. Yeah. I don't know if you've been to some of the centre parks. They've some of the restaurants there have got they're very cool. My daughters love stroking the ears of the robots, and they talk to you. Say, stop scratching my ears.
Yeah. It's interesting. I've been working with a business in the US, and they are trying to revolutionize the hospitality industry. So what they're able to do in a few of their restaurants is have the security cameras lock onto the employees they have working for them, and it basically creates a back-end profile for that employee, and it summarizes what they've been doing and whether they've actually been working to the level they should be. And it can also highlight what they're doing when they're not working. One of the really interesting, scary examples they provided me was that one of their employees was vaping in the back kitchen, and because of the security camera is able to move and lock onto these people, it's like computer vision must be, and it was able to then alert the corporate team that someone was actually vaping in the kitchen. So I know there's a lot of technology out there at the minute that is able to highlight what people are doing, and it's all remote at the minute.
Yes.
So it's definitely a scary and evolving landscape, but you effectively have a robot in the corner that is spying on you, making sure the work is being produced at their highest level.
Yes, and it's an evolution of what's always happened in factories or anything along those. Like you always had an inspector, a foreman, sort of making sure people were working at their hardest. It's taken that to the next level. Yeah,
and we kind of touched on it earlier, but you're effectively a chief AI and data officer, and there's been an emergence of head of AI type roles, AI leadership roles. A lot of mixed opinions and views on what they mean and whether they're relevant. So how would you articulate what a chief AI officer actually is?
I think there's always going to be two sides to it. One is that cost reduction piece, which is around how do you make things happen more efficiently, and one is the top line revenue driving thing, which is how can we make more revenue because of AI. And a lot of that future thinking is about defending against future AI trends and what could be happening, and making sure that you get first mover advantage, or you are defending against competitors who are going to be using AI to do that. So you've got this really strategic side of it, and then that cost reduction is about how do you fundamentally make the organisation use the tools that are available on the market at the moment to best use headcount. And it's interesting around the world in terms of how those two different things are happening. So in the UK, because of our economic climate over the last few years has been has been struggling so much, everybody is just looking at that cost reduction side. The stats are roughly, and I did ask ChatGPT for these stats, so it gave me some links, but I'm not sure how much I trust them. But in the UK, 70% of AI spend is effectively on cost reduction, and 30% is on revenue driving. If you compare that to the US, it's the other way around. So they spend only 30% of their AI spend on cost reduction and 70% on revenue generating. Now, if you imagine the cost reduction, you go, okay, I'm going to take 10% out of my bottom line, 20% out of my bottom line. It's a chunky number, but it's fairly fixed, and you're going to hit your limits fairly quickly in terms of what that looks like. If you think about revenue driving, you go, okay, I'm going to multiply it by 5 or 10. The top end number grows hugely. So in the UK, we're going to be struggling. We're doing okay on AI adoption in general, but because we're focusing so much on the cost reduction side, we're going to be behind on that revenue driving side, and especially the US, but also China, Japan, and India now especially are starting to really think about that revenue driving side, and it wouldn't surprise me if the UK ends up having to run to catch up in that space.
So how do you approach that? If any organisation is wanting to increase revenue, like they all are,
yep,
that's the point of business.
And I think, and that's part of the chief AI officer role, is being able to say, yes, I'll do the cost reduction thing, but we've got to think about the other side of it as well, because if we don't put some money into think about that revenue growth, we're going to get caught by a competitor who's doing what we're doing at half the price.
Yeah. So how do you increase revenue using AI?
So normally it's your classic product conundrum. So it is either making your existing product better than competitors. So it's using machine learning or other forms of AI to make your product better. So that in the HealthTech space, that might be having an AI-enabled healthcare professional. So I don't know, there's all sorts of GDPR issues with doing this, but having somebody, having an AI listen to the conversation and auto-write your notes for you. Notes is one of the biggest problems in the NHS, and the communication between different areas. Go, okay, well, if you have an AI listening to you to do that, could that improve the efficiency? If I had an AI-enabled nurse, would it elevate them above my competitors' nurses? So it's sort of improving your existing products, or it's your new product offering. So in our space, we're going, well, actually, do we have enough uniqueness of data and depth enough in our emerging markets and specialized payment methods to be able to sell, say, credit scores? Is that something which we could use AI in order to generate those credit scores off all the data we've got, and then sell that as a service? So it's a new thing which we're not currently doing. It's currently available in the world. Could we undercut or provide something which our competitors are not?
Yeah, I suppose there's a bit of a race at the minute to find out how we can actually utilize the new technology.
And staying adaptable is really important. So at New Cross, we didn't put all our eggs in one basket. We sort of investigated the smart wearables and the robotics use cases, but we didn't commit to either of them. What we said instead is let's make sure we're capturing the right information to make sure that we can help in a robotics or a smart wearables use case should it come to bear in the next year 18 months. So making sure we had the competitive advantage from our data.
Yeah. Do you have any general tips and tricks for people to start leveraging AI or generative AI technologies?
You can always ask AI what you should do. It's a good way to start. Bit flippant, but it's not actually a bad way of going about it. It will give you some really good ideas about how to use it. So getting yourself familiar with even a ChatGPT or Gemini or a Copilot, just starting to use it, work out how it's going to affect the things you're doing. It takes a while, as with any new technology, to see the benefits. Making yourself some little rules, like never start with a blank page. Always get an AI to write a first draft of an email or a document or a presentation. It will start getting you used to it, and then you start seeing some of the things it can do and some of the things it can't do. Is how I would start with it.
Yeah, and for those who are, I suppose, senior principal level engineers and they know their tech already, are there any other technologies that you would recommend looking into?
I think the landscape is evolving incredibly quickly. So every day you look, there are new companies solving similar or the different problems using AI, and they're springing up left, right, and centre. So when you need to solve a specific problem, look into those technologies. Just keeping on top of the general trends in terms of where, say, vision analytics is going, or where robotics is going. So the big trends in your industries. Attending conferences is often a really good way to see how it's been. Both the people who are saying what they can do and actually practically what's being put in place at the moment.
Yeah. How do you manage that though? Because a lot of consultancies go to these conferences and there's an impressive sales guy who talks about the newest product.
Yep.
And
I'm not saying you should buy from them at all, but it does give you a really good idea of what they are saying is possible. And even if it's not possible now, probably will be in the next 6 months or so. So it's back to that speed of evolution, that what people are talking about now will be available quicker than ever.
Yeah. How do you approach that in terms of buy versus build?
It's the same as you should always do with buy versus build. You should buy if you're not adding any IP to it. If you're adding IP, then you should build. Is the general principle. Sometimes there are where there is large enough scale, there's cost-saving reasons to do it. But in general, if somebody else has solved the problem, it's normally quicker to use their solution to do it. Yes, you pay more to do it probably, but it saves you a whole bunch of time that you could spend actually developing your own business and driving your own IP. Yeah,
it sounds like a bit of an admin challenge as well. Okay.
Yes, if you have to manage all the built things, it always costs more to run your built things than you imagine, and and the commoditization of a lot of these things is things like the agentic framework we were speaking about earlier. That is now commoditized, and you shouldn't look to build your own version of that.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, I wrote this down earlier, how do you actually measure the ROI of AI projects?
Yep, and I mentioned we've got the sort of manual hours that we have taken out of the business, we've automated out of the business, which gives a good steer in that. And then in the same breath, I said, well, we haven't actually used it to do headcount reduction, which is sort of where you would actually see the cost saving. It's hard in the same way as measuring any data analytics. ROI is tricky. The keeping really close tabs on those processes you have automated and what those individuals are now doing now that they have more time, and going, is that driving greater business value? At the end of the day, the best metric probably to look at is gross profit divided by number of employees. So how efficient is, how much revenue is every single person making is a good metric to steer, but it's a lag metric, so it won't change for a little while.
Yeah, it links to the tech market, and I know you were looking for work earlier this year. It's brutal in the senior leadership market, as well as just general software engineering. Even if you have a really rich abundance of skills, it's hard to identify which organizations that would suit. And I wanted to learn more about how you approached that market, because you've obviously found an exceptional role, really cool organization at the forefront of tech, financial services and AI as well.
Yes, and sort of two things. One is the UK especially is struggling from a job market perspective at the moment. Look beyond the UK. So be more flexible in terms of going, okay, would you be willing to work remotely but at slightly different time zones, or with some travel? What are your options in terms of that flexibility? In terms of actually sourcing those new roles, it is, especially from a leadership perspective, and everybody says this, but networking is the way to do it. Get your name out there, go to conferences, present at conferences, write LinkedIn articles. So you become the person that is seen when the recruiters start searching in for those relatively rare roles.
Yeah, many are blaming AI for this. So I don't know whether it's true. Obviously, a few of the larger consultancies like Accenture have made a few redundancies, suggesting it's AI's fault. I'm not sure whether it is, to be honest. I think there are other standard economical decisions that play a part in it.
Yes, I tend to agree that it's the sort of the economics of the world at the moment, and especially in the UK, where we're really struggling. And I've only recently realised, since working for a South American organisation, how sort of blinkered the UK has become, how sort of insular in many ways, and because of its economy. The area the AI has had an impact is not necessarily through the jobs it's replacing at the moment, but it is the threat of the jobs that it could replace. So nobody wants to invest in people in case they have to make them sort of redundant in a year's time, when sort of the AI hype comes to fruition. At dLocal, we are growing, but we are doing so cautiously. So we are pushing sort of everybody to the limit first, and then go, okay, we can approve headcount in these spaces, but why can't it be solved through our sort of AI innovation team first? Can we free up more time from somebody else in order to make that an option? Yeah.
So in terms of headcount, what should every data, technology, AI leader be investing in next year? It's the one role.
The one role. So it depends on the maturity of the organisation. You still have to have your data in the right places and the right quality to be able to solve any of your AI problems. So fundamentally, if you haven't got your data in the right place, you need to get your data in the right place. So your data engineer still is sort of pivotal to that. That role, or somebody who is able to help shape what it's going to be looking like going forward. So getting some expertise in the direction that you're looking. Again, using consultancies to do that may be more effective. If your data, if you're comfortable with your data at the moment, it's running at the right quality. Start thinking about these automation and AI engineers and your to solve the efficiency part of the problem, and start looking at data science and ML to solve your sort of driving top line revenue piece. That would be my suggestion. You shouldn't do it by yourself. You should almost always bring in other teams to help you. especially given it's likely to fluctuate in terms of your needs and how long you need different people for. So getting
external teams
to help you on that. And there, especially with remote working, there's very good options in most time zones now to help you do that, and expertise to be able to coordinate that. You get some sort of direction, so you don't necessarily need to have somebody who will a permanent person, potentially working with fractional chief AI officers or chief data and AI officers is a really good way of getting great steer without having to invest a huge amount in that leadership cost. Then scale up quickly using some of the sort of staff augmentation companies that are out there. That'd be my recommendation.
Yeah. How do you approach that whole fractional CIO, CTO, CAIO?
Mm-hmm.
What do you actually need help with? Or is it kind of just having a second opinion that you can trust to make sure you're not going off on a tangent and maybe doing something you shouldn't?
Yeah, so if the company is inexperienced in that area, then by bringing in somebody with that level of seniority to advise the board on how they should be tackling the problem, but without having to have the expense of a full-time person, it's a cheap way to make sure that you're going in the right direction and you're not making any silly mistakes. You're not you don't panic unnecessarily. You've got you can start thinking about those strategic revenue driving opportunities. You can start thinking about where the threats are going to come from for your business, because they will be coming, and I think that's a good way forward for organisations which aren't large enough or wanting to, especially again given the economic climate, wanting to invest in a full-time permanent person.
Awesome. And personally, what's in store for yourself next year?
Well, I'm very excited that to be able to, because it's a global company. It's based remotely, but they have an ethos of work wherever you like, whenever you like. So I'm going to get to do some travel down to South America, which I've never been to before, so looking forward to that. But also then being able to go away for a long period of time, still working but with the family. So say somewhere in Europe for the whole summer or something.
That's cool.
That idea, and I think it's a whole nother discussion about remote working and things. But I think that the benefits you get from being able to work remotely and having that trust of an organisation that you will be able to do your job wherever you are and trusting you to do it is so valuable for any organisation.
So you're more or less fully remote?
Yep, completely remote.
Wow,
okay.
Will that continue?
Touch wood. Yes, I think there's about only a dozen of us based in the UK. There's a larger presence in Spain, so my boss is based in Spain. I'm travelling to Madrid to meet some of the team out there next week, and I'll be going to Argentina in November to again meet more of my leadership team. So having those face-to-face relationships and building those relationships, yes, definitely really important. You can do that in a number of ways without forcing people into the office.
Awesome. That's probably a topic of conversation for another time.
Different topic.
But Rob, it's been a pleasure.